Hello and welcome to Craft with Sarah. In this video we're going to be making 3D layered cards using our Cricut machine. So these cards are really fun because you build them up with 3D foam pads with all these different layers of card to create a final design which pops off the front of the card. If I just go in a little bit closer, you can see you've got all the different colours in the card going through to create the layered design. If I just turn it on its side, hopefully you can see all those layers with the 3D foam pads making it up. So these cards are really effective. They look stunning when they're displayed, and best of all, they're really easy to make. So let's get started. I've opened up the Dolphin project in Design Space, and I just wanted to show you how it will look when you open it. So on the right hand side of the screen you've got all of your different layers, and this is what makes up the Dolphin card. The thing to notice is the one that says attach, because in there you've got two separate things. You've got a score line and a cut line. If I click the little eye on the other layers, you can just see what I mean by this. So this is going to cut out your main card base, so the front and the back of the card, and then it's going to add a score line down the middle so you know exactly where to fold your card. If you don't have a scoring tool or a scoring stylus with your Cricut machine, you can hide this score line just by clicking the little eye icon next to it. And that means the score line won't be scored when you go to make it, so all you'll have to do is just manually fold the card yourself without the score line to guide you. If you've loaded one of my card projects, which was an SVG file rather than a Design Space project, then you'll need to manually go in and attach the score line to the card, and also turn the score line from a cut line, which is what it will be when you open the SVG, into a score line. Otherwise it's going to cut instead of score. To do that, you can follow the instructions on the video, which I've linked in the top of this video, and I've also put a link to that video in the description below. So if you're not sure how to turn a cut line into a score line and how to attach the score line to the card, have a watch of that video. If you want to resize the card, you can do that by clicking on the top layer which says group, and because everything's in a group, it means I can move it all at the same time. And also I can resize it just by clicking and dragging, and all the separate parts of the card are moved in proportion. Or if you want a specific size, use the width and height boxes at the top. The easiest thing to do is to set the width. So by default it will load at 7 inches wide, because I designed this card to be a 7 by 5 inch card. The height is almost 10 inches, which is absolutely fine, so it's probably not going to hit exactly 7 by 10, and the reason it's 10 is because we've got the back of the card as well, so it's double that initial 7 by 5 inch height. It's best to keep it in proportion if you're going to resize it, so that the dolphins don't start getting all squidged and out of shape. So just change either the width or the height, and then the other one you didn't change will change in proportion. So if I change this to 5 inches wide, everything has resized in sync. But I want to keep it as 7 inches wide, so I'm just going to put that back to 7 and then click Make It. And this is ready to cut. So it's got each of my layers on a separate colour. You can change the material size if you want to cut from a smaller bit of paper. So I normally change it to as small as I can because I don't want any card wastage. And when you're happy with how that's all looking, click the continue button, and that will connect to your Cricut machine, and then just follow the instructions on screen to cut all of your different colours of card, and then we'll jump straight into how to assemble it. I've nearly cut out all of the different parts of the card now. I've just got one left, but I thought I'd show you a really quick way of getting the cut out pieces off of your Cricut mat without them bending or rolling. So this is one I've cut out. It's the final shape of the dolphins with the swirls in it. I've already peeled off the edge of the card that I cut out, so I've just got my actual part that I want to keep left on the mat. Now if I was just to grab this by the corner and pull it off, my paper's all going to fold as it gets away from the stickiness of the mat. To stop it doing that, because we want it to remain nice and flat, instead of pulling the card off of the mat, we're going to pull the mat off of the paper. So turn your mat upside down and then just carefully start bending it backwards. And as you do that, you'll see that your bit that you've cut out just naturally starts pulling away from the mat. So you need to make sure that it's a gentle bend of your mat, not a fold, because if you fold it, you're likely to snap your mat. But you can see as I'm bending my mat back, I'm just applying a tiny bit of pressure to the dolphin cutout, and it's just coming away nice and easily from my mat. You can see my dolphin cutout is completely flat, which is what we wanted and what we needed. So now I can just take off all of the bits of paper that aren't part of the actual bit we want to keep. If any of the bits are a little bit stubborn, you can just use a weeding tool to gently press them out. And I can see I've got all of those nice cutouts perfectly removed from the dolphins. So if I just get rid of all that and pull in the other bits that I've already cut out, we can start assembling our card. So the first thing I'm going to do is take the base card, which is here, and then along the middle we've got our score line, and we're just going to turn the card over and then fold it upwards along that score line. Just fold it nice along the crease. If you've got a bone folder or a scraper tool, you can just go along that, fold to make it super crisp. And that is the base of our card. So make sure you've got it the right way round, so it's going to open in the right place. And then we can start adding the layers. And the first one we're going to add is the waves. So we're going to build this up using 3D foam pads to give a nice 3D effect. So turn your waves upside down and then get your foam pads. Now these ones are quite large. If I just take one off, you can see how big that is. So what I do with these is I just cut them with a pair of scissors to make them smaller. Not only does it mean that your foam pads will last longer, but when we start putting them onto the smaller pieces of the different layers, it makes it so much easier having smaller bits. So I'm just going to go through, place some foam pads onto the waves. Now you don't need to go crazy and put them everywhere, but you need enough that it's going to be nice and sturdy on your card and it's not going to fall off. I'm just going to put a few around. Make sure you don't put the foam pads over any of the bubbles, otherwise when you turn it over all you'll see is the white of the foam pad. You won't see the base card underneath. We want to make sure we put some in the frame part as well. You might need to cut your foam pads even smaller to get it to fit, because what we don't want is any of these foam pads going outside of the blue, because then you'll see it when you turn it over. So I'm happy with that once I've added just one more over there. Okay, so when you put on your foam pads, you can just peel off the other side of the backing to reveal the sticky side on the tops. When you've got them all off, you can pick it up, bring your card back in, and we're going to stick this on top so that it lines up perfectly with our card. It can be easier to open it up and then use this bottom edge to line up. And to start with, I'm just going to lay it down without pushing it, just to make sure it's lined up everywhere. And when we're happy with it, then you can push it down to get all those foam pads firmly stuck. Okay, so you can already see you've got a nice shadow coming in. If I turn this up, then you can get the 3D effect. Hopefully you can see that is shining through already. Okay, so then you just need to repeat that same process for all of the different parts of the design. So I've managed to get this all tangled. The next one is the purple parts of the dolphin. So I'm going to do the same thing again with that one. And then finally, once more, with the top level of the dolphins. So my card is almost done, but before I stick the final layer on, I thought I'd just show you how small that you have to cut some of the foam pads, especially on this dolphin design, because it's really intricate. Don't be scared about cutting your foam pieces small. It can be a little bit fiddly to do, but once you've done a couple, you'll get the hang of it. And you need to make sure you put enough onto the dolphins that it's going to be sturdy when you turn it over. So if I'd have only just put the foam pads on the outside frame and left the dolphins, they're all going to sag in the middle when you put it on the card. But adding these teeny tiny little pieces of foam pad that I've cut from my bigger pieces, it means it will all be sturdy and stay upright. So I've taken the backing off these foam pads and I'm just going to add it onto my card to complete the look. I'm still lining it up along the bottom as a guide. It'll probably help if I put that in the shot. You can tell I'm still new to this. Alright, so when you're happy it's lined up, push it down. Get all those foam pads nice and stuck. And there we have it. Isn't that pretty? Okay, so that is how you make a 3D layered card using your Cricut machine. Now sometimes you might want to do a slightly thinner card, so maybe you want to cut down on your postage costs by sending a thinner one, or your card just doesn't have as many layers. So on this one that I made for St. Patrick's Day, this one only has one lot of foam pads in there. So it's a really thin card, so it's going to be really cheap to post. So the actual SVG design you can find over on my blog at craftwithsarah.com, and I'll put a link to get the free SVG down in the video description as well. But this one is only 3 layers in total, so our dolphin card was 4 layers. So we had the sky, the waves, the pink, and then the silver of the dolphins. But this one is only 3, so it's your base card, it's the bright green and then the pale green on top. What I did with this one to cut down on the height is instead of using foam pads to stick this outer layer of pale green to the bright green, I used glue instead. And that was also really helpful on this one because it's quite intricate with lots of teeny tiny little cuts. So cutting foam pads that small would have been kind of a nightmare. So glue was a lot easier. If you're going to glue it, then something like this, tacky glue, which comes with a really small little nozzle, can be helpful because it means you can put your glue on really precisely. I hope that you've enjoyed watching this tutorial video. I'm also working on a video at the moment on how to design your own 3D layer cards in Design Space. So if that's something that you'd be interested in, to create your own perfectly bespoke and unique cards that only you will have, then be sure to subscribe to my channel, and as soon as that video goes live, you'll get a little notification to tell you that it's live. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please give this video a thumbs up using the button underneath. It really helps me with my channel on YouTube. So thank you again for watching. I hope you enjoyed it and see you next time.